Most people think that they are making conscious choices, but the truth is your unconscious mind is running the show, quietly shaping your habits, your health, and your relationships. In this episode, I'm pulling back the curtain on how all this works and how NLP and subconscious reprogramming tools helped me shift those patterns to create real change. You are listening to the Gut Health Jac podcast, where we question the common narrative and explore what lies beneath the surface. I'm Jacqui, functional nutritionist, clinical herbalist, and NLP practitioner, here to help you understand your body, uncover the root causes of your symptoms, and finally feel like yourself again. If you've ever felt like you don't fit into the conventional path, if you're tired of the quick fixes and crave a more honest, holistic approach, you are in the right place. Every other week, we dive into the often overlooked layers of healing and explore practical steps to rebuild your gut from the inside out, all while reconnecting with your intuition. Let's dig in. Hello and welcome back to the show. Jacqui here. Today we're diving into something that has completely changed how I see myself, my relationships, my work, and everything in my entire life. It's called NLP, or Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And NLP gave me the tools and the framework of how to understand my thoughts and how to start noticing that my thoughts were shaping my reality, and how I could start to shift old patterns and beliefs and emotional responses that were keeping me stuck. So I'm curious, what if the way that you see the world and see yourself, it isn't fixed and it's actually flexible? What if those stories that you keep telling yourself, they aren't facts, they are patterns that you've learned and you've created, and you can actually now unlearn them? So in this episode, I'm going to walk you through what NLP actually is, how our minds create meaning of the world around us, and how we're constantly filtering our life through the lens of our own internal experience and our sum total of life experience. Right? Everything that has happened to us will shape how we think, feel, and behave. So I'm also going to share 10 ways that NLP has personally transformed my life, from creating boundaries, to showing up in leadership, to healing past experiences and taking full responsibility for how I move through my own life. And even how starting this podcast came from using these tools and techniques. And my hope in this conversation is that something sparks a shift in you, a deeper knowing maybe that you are not broken, or that you're not stuck, and that real change is absolutely possible when you start working with your subconscious, not against it. Okay, so before we really tuck into like what NLP is and all this stuff, I want to just take note that our brains can change. And people are really speaking to this right now, and it's called neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to rewire and to adapt through life. And this is a natural process that happens in the brain. We, learn new skills, learn new habits. And with neuroplasticity, we can facilitate our mindset shifts for personal growth. We can also recover from challenges or trauma. And so it's just important to note that our brain is able to change. And as you have probably heard all over everywhere, everyone's talking about neuroplasticity. And I just think it's important to put a little plug in here about it, because the cool thing is that's what we're doing with this work. We are literally changing our brain, and we're changing the way that our brain structure we basically have these little patterns and these pathways that our brain will go to, right? These are the patterns, and we're actually creating new neural nets in the brain, and we're starting to fire them and wire them so that we can walk a different path. And so it's important to note that repeated thoughts and actions will strengthen a neural pathway. So we can do this through everything we're going to talk about today. And that is what's so cool. You may have been running this superhighway to maybe a belief that you aren't good enough. And so we're going to have to rewire that and flop over and create a new path, knowing that you are more than enough. But it's not going to just happen instantly, right? We have to, if this has been a superhighway forever, we need to start walking this new path and giving ourselves evidence that this is true. So just take note that your brain can change, and this is called neuroplasticity. And that's exactly what we're doing and how we're rewiring and adapting through these tools and techniques. And with intentional focus, you can reshape your thoughts and behaviors and outcomes. So we can use NLP to actually, tap into the neuroplasticity with this intentional focus so that we can reshape our thoughts, which that every thought then creates something, right? So when we start to create different thoughts and stories within ourselves, this will change our behavior, and then this changes the outcome. So this is where neuro-linguistic programming comes in. So NLP, we can define it as how to use language, the language of the mind, to consistently achieve specific and desired outcomes, right? This is how we communicate to ourselves and others. So neuro is the nervous system. This is how we process what our experience is, right? Via our senses. And then we have linguistic, is how we assign words to our experiences, right? It's the language which our neural representations are explained. So basically, it's like if we have a filing cabinet with each experience we've ever, been through, and we label it with words, right? We use language to label them and create meaning. So this is the language piece, the linguistic piece. And then we have programming. So this is our communication to ourselves, the neurological systems that we can use to achieve a specific outcome. This is our behavioral patterns. So neuro-linguistic programming is how we use the language of the mind to achieve specific and desired outcomes, right? So let's understand how we register experiences and communicate. So we do this through pictures and smells and tastes and feelings and symbols, sounds, visions, right? Internal dialogue. How do we make sense of the world? We do this through our senses, right? So you are not necessarily experiencing reality as it is. You are experiencing an internal representation of it, right? So we'll go over that again. You are not actually experiencing reality as it is. You are experiencing an internal representation of it. It's kind of like when two people go to the same event and have two completely different stories. They are registering it through their own rose-colored glasses, and the other person was, interpreting it through their sum total of life experience and how they perceived it. You can think of it like filters. So we have our experience, our life, that's been whatever way and shape and form it's taken. We have that personal sum total of life experience, and that's unconscious and conscious. This is our personal history. This is our beliefs. This is our values. This is our attitudes. This is whatever happened to you before right now. And these create filters for our unconscious mind. And we will delete, distort, and generalize to make sense of the world, right? So the thing about our nervous system is we have 11 million bits of information coming at us at any given second. And we can't process the world without deleting, distorting, and generalizing. So if we have 11 million bits of information coming at us at every second, right, the nervous system can only take in about 100 to 150. And even then, we have to filter it down further to about 2 to 7 bits of information per second. And through this process, we're deleting, distorting, generalize. It's kind of like when you walk the same path every single day and then one day you just notice something different. This is happening all the time. We cannot just take in everything that is around us all the time, or we just wouldn't be able to make sense of what is happening. And the way that we take the external event and we put it through our filters, and then we make an internal representation from that. And the internal representation is in pictures, sound, taste, smell, feeling, and internal dialogue. And all of us sort of favor one or the other. Like someone who's very visual, they'll be like an artist, or they'll love style, or they'll have a really, they'll be really good at doing visual stuff like interior design, or they love clothing. And then someone who is really good with feels, maybe they're an athlete, or they're kinesthetic. They do massage for work. Or if they're into sound, maybe they start a podcast, or they love music. And when I went to my trainings, I actually realized how auditory I was. And through learning that, I was like, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense for me to start a podcast because I love sound. I love listening to things as I'm doing something else. And I also make sense of the world through a lot of auditory stuff. And so, again, we have an external event. And we break it down from that bombardment of 11 million bits of information. We put it through our filters from our sum total of life experience. We delete, distort, and generalize to make sense of whatever's happening. And then we make an internal experience through the pictures, the sounds, the taste, the smells, the feels, and the internal dialogue is what is the words we're telling ourselves. One of the most powerful things I've learned through NLP is the concept of perception is projection. And what that means is the world isn't happening to us. It's actually reflecting what's inside of us. We all walk around thinking that we are seeing things as they are, but we're actually seeing life through our own lens, through our own beliefs, through our emotional states and past experiences. It's kind of like if you're in a happy state or a negative state, things are going to be different the way that you perceive them, right? So the world outside mirrors what is unresolved, unprocessed, or deeply believed on the inside, right? So our thoughts, our emotions, and our nervous system are literally filtering out our reality. So let me just paint a picture for you through a story about how powerful our personal and our life experiences and our inner filters can be. So let's say we have two sisters who grew up in the same house, same parents, same school, same dinner, same dog, same neighborhood, Emma and Lily. And now they're adults and they see the world in completely different ways. So Emma believes that she is not good enough. She feels like she constantly has to prove herself. She doesn't trust in people easily and expects to be let down. And Lily, on the other hand, she is moving through the world with ease. She believes that she is capable, worthy, and supported. So same home, similar upbringing. So what happened? So when Emma was 6, she brought home a drawing from school that she was super excited and proud of and wanted to show her parents and her, her family. And then she got home and she held up her drawing to her dad and he said, "That's nice, but why didn't you stay in the lines?" And it wasn't like he meant to say that. He was just a tired parent under stress. But in that moment, Emma's little nervous system made a decision. She made meaning of that reaction. I didn't do it right. I must not be good enough. I'm a failure. And then a few months later, she told a family member something personal, something she was excited about. And it was just laughed off, brushed to the side, not really acknowledged. And that sting, it reinforced the same belief. I must not be good enough. Or people can't be trusted with my feelings. And layer by layer by layer, these small but emotional moments, they build a foundation for our internal world. Right? They become our default filters. So now let's look at her sister, Lily. So let's say she's 2 years younger. She brings home a painting from preschool, and her mom reacts and said, "Oh my God, you're so creative. That's so beautiful. I love it. Oh my gosh, tell me about it." And she internalizes that as, wow, what I create is valuable. I'm good at what I do. I am good enough just as I am. And then at a birthday party, someone compliments her dress. And she's told, "Wow, you have such a light about you, and people just love being around you." She locks that in, locks that decision in. And so these seemingly small events and moments that we go through, they shape the way that we see the world. So like Lily, she grew up expecting connection and assuming people had good intentions, and she was feeling worthy of being seen. So you can see how two people with a very similar upbringing could have very different beliefs. Not necessarily because of what happened, but because of the meaning that we assign to the experience. And this is the essence of NLP, right? So we are making sense of the world through our internal representation of life. And our beliefs are born from repetition and emotion. And they live in our subconscious mind until we bring them into the light and choose something new. And that's what's so beautiful about neuro-linguistic programming, is we can bring them into conscious awareness and shift them. So I'm curious to ask you a few questions. What experiences shaped how you see yourself? And what stories have you taken on that might not even be yours? They might be from your parents, they might be from generations, they might just be how your family is. And what if now you can change those stories? This stuff brings up so much for everyone, and it's so powerful to see what happens when we focus. We allow the unconscious to surface up to the conscious, and then we can shift it. And so it's important to recognize that with the mind, we have 95% of our everything, our habits, our skills, our values, beliefs, behaviors, emotional reactions. This is 95% of our daily lives. And the conscious mind, logic, reason, goals, creativity, that's 5%. So it's pretty amazing to have a tool that can allow us to bring things that are unconscious into the conscious mind. And so the unconscious mind, which is 95%, is formed from the age of 0 to 7. So it's just important to take note of what happened to you, what's happening from age 0 to 7, because this is what forms these hidden blocks, these hidden barriers, and then they're just snowballed and built up from then on. Right? So it's really, really amazing to have this tool to be like, okay, yes, I understand that my unconscious mind is automatically running 95% of the time. Let's bring some of that to our conscious awareness, because a pattern that potentially was planted and learned from, age 3 may not be serving us anymore. Okay, before diving into how NLP has specifically changed my life, I want to share a few presuppositions. So what these are they're like underlying assumptions or working beliefs that guide the way that we approach ourselves, others, the world. So we can think of them like a mental framework, like a lens to look through and to see the world through. They're not necessarily like a rule or a truth in absolutes, but they are incredibly useful if you want to create change. And think of it like a outfit. Like if you're like, not sure, just try it on for a little while. Try on a new outfit, see how it feels. Because these beliefs that when you act, if they are true, they tend to open up new possibilities. They soften conflict or tension, and they help us take our power back. So again, if you don't fully believe them at first, try on the new outfit, walk through the world for a day with this lens on and see how your experience shifts. So the first one, we already kind of talked about. The map is not the territory, right? We do not respond to reality itself. We respond to our internal map. Another one is there is no failure. So number 2 is there is no failure. There is only feedback. And this one is so powerful and changes everything, especially because I had a deep-rooted belief that I was a failure. And so I've been working on this one a lot, where I now believe 100% that there is no failure, there's only feedback. So instead of making myself wrong or saying that I failed, I always just say, what is this here to teach me? What can I learn from this? Whether it's a launch that didn't go as planned, or if it's a surfing day that didn't go very well, or if it's a competition that I entered and I crashed, or a conversation that felt really hard. This I now just see as data, not drama, not anything besides feedback, learnings, data. And these glasses, they help me take more aligned action. They help me speak from a place of being an observer rather than a victim. And it just really helps to trust the process. So the third one here is every behavior has a positive intention. So even if behavior is messy or unhelpful or confusing, the unconscious mind is always trying to protect us in some way, right? It's protecting, it's keeping us safe. So whether it's people pleasing or procrastination or perfectionism or overthinking, these all at one point started out as survival strategies. And so this specific one has helped me soften my judgment towards myself. I can be so hard on myself. And so it helps me bring a lightness and a calmness and a different approach to my patterns. I have compassion instead of criticism. So every behavior has a positive intention. And if you notice yourself repeating something that you don't like or you want to change, we can see how this is protecting us. How is it keeping us safe? So 2 more. So the next one is everyone is doing the best they can with the resources that they have. So when we remember to put these glasses on and to adopt this understanding and this belief, our judgment for other people really softens. And when we talk about resources, we're talking about emotional regulation, using language, safety, role models, sleep. Maybe they didn't eat enough, right? Maybe they don't know how to eat. Maybe they don't know how to do life without alcohol, right? This doesn't mean that we excuse hurtful actions, but we can start to understand them and look at them from a different perspective. And with this, we can then reflect on what we need more of when we're not showing up how we want. So we can use this for other people, right? This person may not have the resources they need to change or to show up the way that I'm expecting. And then we can also do this for ourselves. Like, what resources, do I need to get more resources to deal with this thing, right? What do I need more of when I'm not showing up the way I want? So everyone is doing the best that they can with the resources that they have. So the last one before we move on is the meaning of your communication is the response that you get. And sometimes this one's like, ooh, that's a bit stabby. But the cool thing is it brings it back to us. Yes, it can be humbling to say, wow, I could have delivered that better. Right? It invites us to take ownership of how we come across. If someone misunderstood you or misunderstood me, I could say, that's not what I meant. Or I could say, oh wait, okay, how could I have said it differently so it landed? So it moves us from the blame, shame game to curiosity and empowerment and responsibility. So the meaning of your communication is in the response that you get. So if someone is misunderstanding you, maybe just deliver it in a different way. And I've been using this in my relationship, and it's so beautiful to see how it's helping me to show up differently. And it's so true, when you deliver something in a different way, sometimes people just completely have a different reaction. So the meaning of your communication is the response that you get. So yes, it's humbling, but it really does invite us to take this ownership of how we are showing up. So next, I want to transition into 10 specific ways and things that have shifted in my personal life since I started using NLP and quantum time technique. So quantum time technique is a process that we use to go back on our timeline and get information about our past so that we can learn and move on and live life the way that we want, not by what happened back then. So it's basically going back then, working with your younger parts of yourself, or helping to integrate two parts or release stored emotions. So the number one for me was creating boundaries with my mom's addiction to alcohol. I used to carry so much guilt and discomfort around her drinking, and I would always, do anything and everything I could to help her, to fix it, to go, do, whatever. And I finally have come to a realization that it's not my job to fix anyone else. I can't change anyone else. And, I've done so much work on this where, I've worked on limiting beliefs, and I've integrated my parts, and I've released, stored. I have a huge fear that, alcohol is going to end her life, and one of the best things I ever did was I cleared the big 6 emotions, so that helped me to not overreact every time she was drinking. And so now I can hold compassion and protect my energy and create boundaries, right? So if she's drinking, I can say, hey, I'm just going to call you back. I just want to talk to you when you're sober. There's not that huge emotional charge of the whole sum total of my life experience as a child of an alcoholic. So NLP and quantum time technique has really, really helped me create boundaries with people that I love in my life, because I don't want to cut her off. And Mom, if you're listening, you know that. I don't want to cut you off. I freaking love you. I love that, I love our connection with plants and flowers and nature and dogs and cooking. Like, there's so much juicy stuff there, but there has to be a boundary. And I don't want to be around the drinking. And the other day, I actually had to create a boundary when she called me on the phone and she was drinking. I just said, hey, Mom, can I just call you tomorrow when you're sober? Not that she loved that, but it's much better for my nervous system. So that's been a huge, massive thing for me, where I never realized until I started doing this work and doing some other therapy stuff that my nervous system was so fired up and so charged. And that was a big reason that I had a really hard time healing my gut. Because if your nervous system's on and ready to fire and wire and run from a threat, you're not going to be digesting your food. And so once I found this type of work and this understanding of the world and how we can use it to move through and calm our nervous system, this really, really helped me, especially with creating boundaries. And not just with, the alcohol, also with just things like, hey, I just need some space right now. So number 2 is seeing the feedback rather than failure. And for me, this was really huge because I'm not sure, you guys probably don't know, but I used to be a professional skier, and I competed and I skied all around the world and shot photos and films. And I was on this thing called the Free Skiing World Tour, and it was so hard for me to get first place. Like I was like always second, third, or fourth. And for me, over time, like this really locked in, like I'm a failure, like I can't do it. And then people from the external world are like, oh my God, what? You got second in the world at the time. And it's even hard for me to say that because I'm still working on this belief, but it has really helped me to see my quote unquote failures as just feedback. What could I have done better? And I use this now in surfing and in work and being visible. How do I show up and be seen? How do I come on this podcast? If I make a mistake or say something I didn't mean to, it's like, oh, that's just feedback. I'll just learn from that and move on. So it's really, really helped me to rewire and look at the things that I do in my life, not as a mistake. It's just something that now I have the feedback and I can move on and move forward. And if I didn't have the mistake, how would I have learned that thing? So really helping me move from failure to feedback has helped, honestly, grow my business. It's helped me in my relationships. It's helped me with my surfing big time. I don't know if you are trying to learn how to surf or you've ever been a surfer, especially if you didn't grow up doing it, it is so humbling and definitely you feel like a failure. But the cool thing is you just go back and you do it again and again and you learn and okay, I did that this time. Now what can I do? How can I learn from this so I can move on? Number 3 is this work and NLP has supported my relationships in so many ways. The relationship to myself, the relationship to my partner, the relationship to my family and my friends. It's really just helped me identify the triggers and see, okay, what is that unresolved negative emotion that I could work on? This is coming up for a reason. What is this here to show me? And it's also really helped me understand myself in a way that I can communicate what I need, my feelings, my emotions. And I also believe it's made me a better listener. And I believe that every relationship could use those two things. And not to say I'm perfect or close to, but I do fully feel that my relationships are safer, honest, less reactive, and they're getting better and better. And when we start to become aware of our internal patterns, our internal map, it is so much easier to express ourselves. And I was never taught how to communicate. We were never taught about emotions. It was always like, stuff them down, stuff them away. You're weak if you talk about your emotions. Like, wipe the tears, goodbye. It's like, no. And now I'm like, let's let the emotions flow. And that's a beautiful thing that I've been working on and been learning how to do is when there's emotion that comes up, really sit with it and listen to it. It's there for a reason. So NLP and quantum time technique have really supported my relationships. Again, not to just the people around me, but also with myself. And number 4 is I started a podcast, right? I've been thinking about this forever, but once I overcame the belief that my voice doesn't matter and I really reframed it and now believe that I can stand up for what I believe in and that my voice does matter, I started a podcast. And it's so fun because I love being on here and the responses I'm getting are amazing. And if you guys want to hear about anything, just send me a message and I'm happy to talk about it on here because it's really been a fun, creative project where I get to connect with people all over the world. Like, how cool is it that I'm plugged into your ears right now, wherever you are? It's so fun and it's so amazing. And I wouldn't have been here if I didn't do the inner work to get over the fact that I didn't think that my voice mattered. Right? I cleared the decision that I should stay quiet and that I'm better off when I just shut up. Right? Because I had a snowball effect and time and time again, I perceived that it was better if I stayed quiet. But I built confidence around speaking and using my voice. And now we have a place to connect and share stories and share insights into how we can heal the gut and how we can heal the mind and how we can achieve our desired outcomes. So yeah, totally. Number 4, help me start a podcast. Number 5 is it has improved my athleticism and improved my surfing specifically. So I've always loved to ski. I've always loved to bike. I've always loved to hike. I've loved exploring and adventure and traveling all over the world. And right now I live in Byron Bay, Australia, and my outlet is surfing. And Surfing is, again, so humbling, but definitely this work has helped me go back and get in the water when I don't have the best day. And also with stuff like we do things unconsciously in our movements. So we can be like, I'll ask my partner, hey, what did I do on that wave that made me fall? And he's like, you have your arm like all the way up here and you're throwing yourself off. And so we can even use this understanding of I'm doing things unconsciously. So how can I bring that into conscious awareness? So I get on the wave and I tap my hip to know that my hand's down. So when we understand how our mind works, we can use it in every single aspect of our life. So now if I get on the wave and I say, okay, consciously tap your hip with your left hand so that it doesn't end up over your head and I throw myself off balance. So cool. I can become a better surfer by working on my mind. And it also helps me see unconscious patterns like hesitation or, mental struggles or my self-talk. Like the other day I was paddling out and it was kind of big and I just was like, oh my God, you can do this. I was just really vibing myself up and I got out there so fast. Right? So it was like, oh my God, this seems scary, right? I perceive it as scary, but is it actually? No, I just have to go under a couple waves. So surfing is now becoming there's more confidence in it. And if there's anything you need in surfing, it's confidence. Number 6 is identifying triggers as something to work on. And instead of blaming the moment or blaming someone else, I turn it around and ask, what is this really about? So I can take myself out of the room and sit with it and say, okay, what am I making this mean? Right? I'm making this mean that I'm not valuable. I'm not worth being, taking the time to be with. What am I making this mean? So like if my partner's on his phone and yes, we've had conversations around it, but also like he also can have time on the phone. Like he does research. He's always looking up stuff. He's really good at, getting stuff for the van and the surfboards. And he does that on his phone. So it's really important for me to allow him to do that thing. But what I was making it mean was that I'm not worth his time. And I do believe we don't want to be on our phones all the time, but also we're in a modern world where there's a lot of cool stuff on the phones that we partake in. And that's okay. So it helped me decode triggers as, signs of potentially I wasn't meeting my own needs or my own unhealed wounds. Right? So I really dove into that and allowed myself to go sit in the room and say, okay, what is this actually about? Okay, wow. Where do you feel like you were ignored? We went back and did a lot of stuff with my past and helped go in and support my inner child. Let her know it's okay, because there's inner child work that we can go do, and we go see, what does she need? And what does she want to let go of? Does she need to be somewhere else? Because if we go in the unconscious mind and you have a part that's stuck somewhere that they don't want to be, they're not going to feel safe and comfortable. So we can go back and help that part of you feel safe and nurtured and cared for and give them your full attention. So through this work, I feel so much more emotionally aware and less reactive, which is so amazing because I'm very fiery and I can be very reactive. So to have something trigger me or something that used to trigger me and now be like, oh, I actually don't feel that trigger anymore. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. If you are feeling triggered, there's probably some work to do. So number 7 is taking responsibility. So this is a concept called cause versus effect. And this is just all about taking responsibility for our lives. So you can either be in cause or you can be in effect. So when we're in the cause side of the equation, the power is within us. We are taking responsibility for our life. We believe that the results that we get are from the actions we take. So it's basically you're in the observer role. And then the effect side is more the victim role. It's like if they would change, then everything would be better. If the weather was better, my life would be better. If, life is unfair and I'm stuck and there's nothing I can do about it. And so this was a game changer when I do it sometimes, I'll fall back into effect. I'm like, okay, wait, I'm falling into the the life is hard part and swap over to cause, like, okay, wait, what can I do about this? So it helped me take responsibility for my life, right? And be like, okay, this thing happened in my life. What can I do about it to change this? So moving from being in a victim mentality, like this is happening to me, into the cause side of the equation where like I am responsible for my life. It's such a great tool to bring into your everyday. Like if you can really remember to jump back to the cause side and just give yourself perspective to see how you can show up differently and taking responsibility. So like in my programs and in my work, I know that the tools and techniques that I use to heal the gut and rewire the mind, they work. But it depends on the person who shows up. Are they going to take responsibility and make the change in their life? Because I can't come cook dinner for you. I can't come, identify your triggers and sit with them and say, okay, what does this actually mean? Because it's up to you. And so through NLP and quantum time technique, I really feel like I'm taking responsibility for my life and the results that I get. So that is number 7. Moving from the effect side of life into the cause side of the equation. Number 8 is this journey has really accelerated me into leadership. And I definitely used to doubt my worth and I didn't want to be seen and I didn't feel like my voice mattered. But now as I do this work more and more, I'm like, wow, I have a lot to share with the world. And I've helped a lot of people. And I know how to heal guts and I know how to, clear up skin. I know how to help people find their purpose. So it's helping me step into this leadership. I'm starting to host new moon gatherings to bring women together, to hold space. So I always kind of knew that was in there, but this has really helped me step into leadership and step into helping guide people when they're stuck. And so if I didn't ever do this work and I still doubted my worth and I didn't want to be seen and I believed that I didn't matter, I probably wouldn't have this podcast. I probably wouldn't be holding new moon gatherings and I probably wouldn't be a practitioner. So I've been able to show up more online. I've been able to show up with more certainty and confidence and hold space for other people in a way that feels really grounded. So moving on to number 9, I am much more emotionally stable. So I used to get so flooded and reactive, a lot of tears, a lot of shutdown, snappiness, and just really reactive emotions. And I went and I released the big 6 emotions that were stored in my nervous system. And I've used state management tools and anchors, and this has really helped me feel safe and regulated. And I can now, when something shows up, when an emotion comes up, I can breathe, I can pause, and I can respond rather than react. And it's a beautiful thing when at one point, you'd have an overactive, let's say, fear response. And what we can do is we can actually clean up that emotion so that now it's not as overreactive and it's appropriate. So we can clean up the emotions so that they're more appropriate for the actual thing that's happening present day today. Right? So if let's say there's anger stuff in the past and there was a lot of anger that was never released, and we go and we clean up the anger and we work on, rewiring the mind with that specific emotion because our emotions and our mind are very attached. We can then be angry today, not from like the whole lifetime of emotion of anger. We can just respond to that in the moment where it's not like we take the emotions away, but we can actually just clean them up so that you're not so overreactive in your present moment. And so now I fully feel much more emotionally stable. So moving on to number 10, I feel like I can now detach from things and get this different perspective. So in quantum time technique, we are always focusing on zooming out, getting a higher perspective, floating higher and further back, kind of like in the cause versus effect, I feel like I can detach from things. And there's even this technique called perceptual positions where we sit in our view. So it's like, okay, if we're talking about something or a body part, we want to get perspective from me, myself, and then we can get perspective from the other. So whether that's a body part or from another person, and then we get perspective of the neutral observer, the fly on the wall. And then we can come back to the self and we can really understand, wow, okay, after going through all of those perspectives, what is it now that I believe about this situation? And this really helps us to let go of control and helps us move through challenges in such a different way where we're more detached. We're not like so involved in everything and associated, which is okay to be associated looking through your own eyes with everything, but it's also really helpful for someone like me who is very much a feeler to be able to get a higher perspective. Look at stuff long term. It's not all happening right now. It's like, okay, wait. Let's like detach a little bit and get a different perspective. So this has all helped me reframe situations where maybe at once I felt like I took it really personally. Now it's like, oh, well, that might just be that other person having a day. I don't actually know what's going on for them. I don't need to take that personally because I don't know what's actually going on, right? So it really helped me see from a new perspective. Okay, so let's bring this all together. Let's wrap this all up for this episode today. Today we explored how NLP and quantum time technique have helped me create boundaries, see feedback instead of failure, healing belief systems that kept me quiet and small, and allowing me to step into leadership and trust myself and take full responsibility for my life, shift how I'm showing up in relationships and with myself, speaking kinder to myself, right? Giving myself credit. And 2, it's important to remember the concept of we are not experiencing reality as it is, right? And the cool thing is we actually didn't talk into this, but so there's 11 million bits of stuff coming at us per second. So let's redo this into toothpicks. So let's say there's 11 million toothpicks coming at you every second. You can only pick up 100 to 150 bits of toothpicks per second. And with this, the brain will focus on what toothpicks we already have in our awareness. And so we will delete, distort, and generalize to create a understanding of what's happening. So if we go back a step, the brain focuses on what we have in our awareness already. So this is where we can actually decide what toothpicks to pick up. So if you want to start believing that it's possible to get shredded at, 45, start seeking evidence of people who are healthy and strong and fit at 45. This gives your brain evidence that that is possible. Same thing as like if someone's like, oh my gosh, have you seen a red Ferrari? Or you're talking about red Ferraris. And then all of a sudden you see red Ferraris. So the same thing happens if we start to give our brain more evidence, we will see more of that. And then it becomes more and more believable. So what we focus on, we will get more of. And that's where if you find yourself in an internal pattern that you don't like, always ask yourself, what would I want instead? It helps jump from that negative pattern into a new neural net. We want to start creating that new neural net. For me, it was at one point, my voice doesn't matter. And now it's my voice does matter. I stand up for what I believe in. And the more and more I talk about that and use that in my life, the more we focus on that, the more I will get that. Right? So the brain focuses on what we have in our awareness already. So if we bring in what we want into our awareness, we'll get more of that. Like, isn't that so amazingly cool? So this work is so deeply personal, and also it's available to you, and it's amazing. And it doesn't have to be, some people are so afraid to turn in and look inside. But in my experience, yes, it can be hard work. And also it's so fun and freeing to get to know yourself at a deeper level. And to be able to express your creativity and your internal needs, it's so calming. Okay, thank you for tuning in and listening to the show today. I hope that helps you start looking at things with a different perspective, maybe playing around with what is your model of the world? What am I making this mean? All these sorts of questions and beautiful, inquisitive directions that we can take. And if you are feeling called to do this kind of work, this deeper inner journey, I am currently accepting new one-on-one clients. So if this is something where you're like, oh, I feel stuck with my health, or oh, I feel stuck with my career, or finances, or your home, whatever it is, we can start to investigate what is going on for you and why you are keeping yourself where you are. So I've just popped a link down in the show notes just below the show if you want to hop on the phone and have a little chat about how we could work together. And also, I will be adding some recorded meditation and hypnosises to the podcast, so keep an eye out for that. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. If this episode lit something up within you, join me again in 2 weeks' time. Gut health doesn't have to be overwhelming. We'll unravel it here together, one episode at a time. Sign up for my newsletter with this link below to be the first to know when the next episode drops. And if someone came to mind while listening today, copy the link and share this episode if you think it could help them. Thanks for tuning in and listening to the Gut Health Jac podcast. Now get outside, have some fun, and I'll see you for the next episode.